We had a film come out by Stu Peters over there on Rumble, and it's called Final Days. All right, I don't know where they get this. I mean, the Bible has last days, the end of the world, the end of all things. The last time. These are phrases that the scripture declares about what's coming up. All right, but notice Stu Peters had a film called Final Days that shows you primarily about the transhumanist agenda for the kingdom of the beast with the mark of the beast coming up. All right. That is going to happen 42 months after MBS does the deal with Israel and he's killed of a sword and yet lives. Then the kingdom of the beast will begin and his mark will be dispensed by the final pope in the right hand or forehead to buy or sell with. And no man will be able to do that unless they have the mark of the beast. So we are approaching the last days, which they call the final days here. But all throughout this film, I was watching it and it's pretty interesting where they show you the compilations of all the COVID crap that we've been living through. All right. So I do appreciate that part. But if you're going to call, this is directed towards Stu Peters, by the way, which he should know about me by now. But this is very interesting that Stu Peters made a film about the final days, the last days, and not one bit of this film discussed about what will start the last days. And that last days is started by the Prince of the Covenant, Prince Mohammed bin Salman, confirming the covenant with Israel that will start the final prophetic 70th week for Israel. That is a week of days. I mean, a week of years, excuse me. And that's going to be 7 years before the Lord returns in flaming fire. All right. Many people don't even know. Many people don't even know about what starts the last days. All right. Let alone there's simplicity in Christ. And I use plainness of speech here on this show because there's so much confusion and deception out there. All right. There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing right now that say they know the Bible, but are clearly lying to you about what's coming up pretty soon. All right. But as I mentioned, this film does a good job about telling you about the transhumanist agenda coming up with those that were deceived to receive that old serpent's pink venom that they call the vaccine. But one of the things that it reminded me of is the following, all right? I do recall not too long ago that the former prime minister of Israel said the following to Albert Bourla, which is the CEO of Pfizer, all right, which was one of the main manufacturers of the jab. And I recall on June 27th of last year, he told Albert Bourla the following: "Thank you, Albert, for the gift you gave the world, the gift of life." All right, and don't forget what I was reminded of with the Stu Peters documentary that came out yesterday called The Final Days. They reminded us that mRNA is also called the software of life because this is how you should consider what has been happening here. All right. Your DNA is the platform. Think about that as the computer. And the mRNA technology is the software that you put on the computer. All right. And they call it mRNA from Moderna's very own website. They call it the software of life, which is mRNA, on the platform of your DNA. All right, so listen, I have a whole new understanding as to what Naphtali Bennett, that satanic sellout to God's people, said to that satanic, wicked Albert Bourla from Pfizer. All right, don't forget Pfizer used mRNA technology. All right, mRNA, they call it the software of life. And here you have the former prime minister of Israel, God's people in the flesh. All right, he's telling Albert Bourla, "Thank you for the gift of life, the software of life that people were deceived to receive, that masqueraded around as a vaccine." So let's not forget that these people, this is absolutely diabolical what we're living through from 2020 going forward with Operation Warp Speed. We are on Operation Warp Speed to the kingdom of the beast. Do not forget that. And this is the beast. All right. What the final days did not tell you is, all right, if you're going to have a movie about the final days, the last days, well, who's the beast then? Who's the beast? It's called the mark of the beast. Who's the beast? And only on this show will you hear someone that has the stones, the balls, to tell you straight up that the beast is Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I read to you from Revelation 13. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding, I have understanding, count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, and that is 666. And you know why God gives me that number? Because I'm told to count the number of his name. How do you get a number of a name? The practice of gematria, of taking letters to numbers. And I want to show you here with the prime numbers only. When you take prime numbers only from A through Z, Prince Mohammed bin Salman equals the number of the beast to the number of his name, because he is the beast that will soon do a deal with Israel and get us all into the last days. All right. And here we have an update from an Israeli sellout here. He says, there is in Saudi Arabia a leader that the world has never seen before. Yeah, he's called the beast. All right. A man who took his country 180 degrees in a different direction, because we're about to go into the last days, you fools. And it says here, a bold and revolutionary leader. Yeah, he's called the beast. He's called the Prince of the Covenant. And Prince Mohammed bin Salman will also be the seventh king of Revelation 17. And then they're going to kill him with a sword 42 months after he does the deal with Israel, and he yet lives, because Revelation 17 talks about the eighth king, who's Judas Iscariot, the son of perdition, that will ascend out of the bottomless pit after they kill MBS with a sword, and he's going to enter the body of MBS to rule the world. And that's when they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Because they just killed the guy and he came back to life. All right. That's what's going to happen pretty soon. All right. So do not be deceived. Do not be deceived, especially when someone's telling you. All right. When someone has the understanding and I'm trying to pass on some understanding, the very least you could do is say thank you. All right. So you're not deceived. But let's continue, because not only do we have aliens being talked about, we just had the kingdom of Esau. Do not forget, the beast is a child of Esau, an Edomite. And we just had the Saudis in space, which equals 666. They just landed back to Earth on the Dragon space capsule. You like that one, huh? You like how they use those words? Dragon space capsule. All right, the dragon, that great dragon, is the devil. But here they have the Dragon space capsule taking the Edomites from space back down to earth. All right. And I read to you from Obadiah chapter 1, where it says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, because that's where they were just at right now, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord, to Esau, which is Edom. All right. Do not forget who we're dealing with. It's very simple. Esau is going to do a deal with Jacob to get us into the last days pretty soon. All right. This is Esau from Arabia. Esau de Arabia. All right. And we have a new film showing you that, called Esau is Edom. And that can be seen for a donation of $7 at beingjustified.com/Esau, where we have a 1 hour plus film that shows you the beast is a child of Esau, an Edomite that's rebuilding Edom, that he calls Neom today, which is over Mount Sinai, which is in Arabia, that Paul, my apostle, tells me in the book of Galatians. All right. And notice what else I just recently found out. I just found this out last night, and I had to make a gram of truth on it. Take a look at the screen here. We have the phrase Edom and Judas. Edom and Judas. All right, don't forget, Judas is the eighth king of Revelation 17, and he's of the seven kings of Revelation 17, and those seven kings are the house of Esau. Those seven kings are the kings of the house of Esau, who is Edom. And look at this. Edom and Esau are going to come. I should say is that Edom and Judas are going to come together pretty soon, all right? Because Judas is going to enter MBS to rule the world 42 months after he does the deal with Israel, and they kill him with a sword. Judas is going to enter his body and rule the world. But what do we see here? Edom and Judas with the Sumerian cipher right here equals the number of the beast. I am not surprised, all right? And I read to you from Revelation 17. And the beast that was alive betrayed the Lord and is not, died and hung himself and went to his own place. Even he, Judas, is the eighth king of Revelation 17 and is of the seven kings of Saudi Arabia, the house of Esau, and goeth into perdition, because he is the son of perdition that's going to go into the body of MBS after they kill him with the sword 42 months after he does the deal with Israel. Very simple. Very simple. There is simplicity in Christ. But I did want to highlight this here. Kind of freaky again. I'm always kind of freaked out as to how these numbers play out. All right. There is no playing with these numbers. There is no playing with these numbers as confirmation of the understanding that I have of what's coming up pretty soon. All right. But look at this. As I mentioned before, the Saudi crown prince is a child of Esau who's rebuilding Edom by the Red Sea, which he calls Neom. And we just saw an image from Neom over here of this diver. All right. And I already showed you the diver has a certain pose that looks like the I pet goat pose that Judas makes. And also we see at the Society of Judas, they honored their last Jesuit superior general with what looks like Jesus, but is truly Judas. Look at that pose. The pose is Judas ascending from the bottomless pit to enter MBS in the middle of the tribulation when MBS is killed of a sword and yet lives. All right. And do not forget, a beast rise up. Where? Out of the sea. The first beast of Revelation 13 comes from the sea. Yeah, it's called the Red Sea. All right. What more important sea than the one that Moses parted? All right. With the Exodus. And as I've been mentioning, this is the crux of the matter, all right? Esau is going to do a deal with Jacob and going to start the last days. And again, I remind you, with prime numbers only, when you take letters to numbers, that's how you get the number of his name, all right? And if anybody else is out there telling you, oh, forget about gematria, God doesn't tell you to look at it. Well, you better ask him, how do you get the number of a name then, you fool? All right? Because that's how you do it here. All right? You give letters, numbers. That's how you get the number of his name. And you're supposed to be looking for it. And I found it. And I'm telling you right now, it's Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Like the heathens say, I got your number, man. I got your number, MBS. All right? But look at this. What else do we see as developments to getting us to the final prophetic 70th week? We see this recently here. It says, Israel not really aware about progress of Saudi-U.S. talks on normalization deal. All right, it says here, a top Israeli official played down prospects for a U.S. brokered diplomatic breakthrough with Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, describing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government as in a fog of any progress in related talks between Riyadh and Washington. Listen, that's all BS. They all know they're all rowing into the deep. They're all on the same boat together, rowing into the deep, which is the kingdom of the beast. You better believe they're all working in concert right now to get us all into the last days, all right? And as I've mentioned before on the show, this is a timeline of the 70th week as described in the book of Daniel. And we have this coming up. After the cross, we are in the dispensation of the grace of God. Soon, the beast will confirm the covenant with Israel. That's MBS, confirming the covenant with Israel. Then, we're going to get into the final prophetic 70th week, which is a week of years. 3.5 years for the two witnesses and 3.5 years for the kingdom of the beast, while the vials of the wrath of God are pouring out on the beast-worshiping world before the Lord returns, all right? And if you want to see this in detail, go to our website, beingjustified.com, and our blog has it if you do a search for Daniel's 70th week. So if you want to take a look at that in detail, all right? But let's take a look now at what else we see here, all right? We're seeing this. This is kind of an odd title, by the way, that caught my attention, as I've already highlighted that MBS was on beast mode at the Arab Summit recently in Jeddah because they gave him a lot of prominence. But look at what it says here. The Jeddah Arab League Summit is MBS's final crowning. What the heck does that mean? All right? But look at this. Another exercise, it says here, was on display at the recent 32nd Arab League Summit held on May 19th in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, right there by the Red Sea. Leaders from the League's member states met to once again strengthen joint Arab action based on common foundations, values, interest, and one destiny. Yeah, And it says here, according to the Jeddah Declaration issued at the end of the meeting. However, filled as it was with tired slogans, rehashed pronouncements, and insincere promises to work toward a better future for the Arab world, the gathering was little more than the final crowning of Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, which is MBS as an acronym, as the leader of the current Arab political order. Like I told you, MBS is on beast mode, all right? Do you see him in the center? Do you see him in the center? All right? He's the beast. Of course, he's going to grow in prominence. He's going to do a deal with Israel. We're going to enter the last days. 42 months later, they're going to kill him with a sword, and he yet lives. And then the world's really going to wonder after this guy. But notice what they said there. MBS is the leader of the current Arab political order. All right. And he's the one that's going to do a deal with Israel pretty soon to get us into the last days. All right. Take that to the bank. All right. Let him that hath understanding, I have understanding. Do not be deceived. All right. But let's continue now as to how, the news, the public news is now just telling it more and more now as to Israel coming together with Saudi Arabia. But little do they know, the leader of Saudi Arabia, the de facto ruler and prime minister, is the beast of Revelation 13, is the prince of the covenant from the book of Daniel, and is the seventh king of Revelation 17 for a short space, and then they kill him. All right. But look at this. Look at this. Let's take a look now from one of the political commentators in Saudi Arabia talking about Saudi Arabia and Israeli normalization. Because do not forget, that is the crux of the matter that this faithful watchman is telling you. When Saudi Arabia, MBS specifically, does a deal with Israel, 7 years left, all right, before the Lord returns. When does the last days start? It starts with the beast doing the deal with Israel. The beast is MBS. He does a deal with Israel, 7 years left. Let's keep it nice and simple here on this show. But let's take a look now at this recent news where you see him publicly talking about the fact that Israel is soon to do a deal with Saudi Arabia. And little do people know, the leader of Saudi Arabia is the beast and will get us into the final prophetic 70th week, which is the last days to the entire world, which is also called the end of the world. So here we go. Let's take a look.
Every word matters. Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this exclusive interview. Now, in the ever-evolving political landscape of the Middle East, there have been whispers about the potential for normalizations of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia. Reports suggest the United States could act as a facilitator in this process. Given the historical context and diverse interests in the region, this is a topic that warrants a deeper investigation. And joining us today on TVP World to help us do just that is Salman Al-Ansari, Saudi political researcher. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you so much, Ben.
So there's a lot to unpack here, especially given the historical context between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Can you first give us briefly describe the current state of diplomatic relationship between the two countries?
Sure, absolutely. With regards to Saudi-Israeli normalization, we've seen how some of the U.S. media and also specifically the Israeli media have been speaking a lot about it as if it's something that's going to happen disregarding all the other prerequisites of the kingdom, which is not something that the kingdom is actually pursuing at all whatsoever. So I think I urge people to not actually believe all the narratives that have been going through Israel, specifically with regards to Saudi Arabia being in a position where they normalize for free. There's nothing going to be for free. And the Saudis have always been voicing their concerns about the status of the Palestinian citizens, because at the end of the day, you cannot actually do a real normalization with Israel without having the Palestinians to be having their own self-determination. It's a must. It's not negotiable, actually, for the kingdom. One of the things, actually, that is different between the Likud and the President or Prime Minister Netanyahu's ideas with regards to normalization with Saudis, I would call it like as a 1 to 10 kind of approach from the kingdom, which is one is to have the Palestinians to have their state, and number 10 is complete normalization with Saudi Arabia. And the moment you have normalization with Saudi Arabia, that means you're going to have normalization with half of the global south, 57 Muslim nations, because Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam and it's the hub of the whole Arab and Muslim world. So there's a lot to gain from the Israeli part the moment they do this normalization. So that's why we want them to have the real approach from 1 to 10. Netanyahu, on the other hand, he wanted from 10 to 1. Normalization with the Arabs, and then this may facilitate some sort of a resolution for the Palestinian issue. We don't see this to be completely legitimate, because at the end of the day, you cannot, as Saudi Arabia, as a heavyweight in the region, as the country that actually represents 1.7 billion Muslims around the world to just normalize with the assumption that the Israelis at some point will give the Palestinians their actual legal rights.
Right, you brought up a very good point. I think a lot of people look at this as like an on and off switch, normalization or no normalization, kind of like a 0-1 binary.
Exactly.
But I think you put it in a very, very concise way that it's a gradient from maybe like non to kind of normalization. It has to land somewhere in between. And I think this kind of binary thinking is indeed very not the most conductive way to look at it. So let's say if we put it into a gradient of a 0 to 10, what number do you see we are in right now?
Very good question. I think the moment the previous administration did the Abraham Accord, which was actually a very good move, and the Saudis have been encouraging this. We didn't have a problem with Bahrain or the UAE or even Sudan or also Morocco to have normalization with Israel. That actually built some kind of trust with regards to having the Arabs to have this kind of normal kind of relations with Israel. But at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia is not going to do it as easy as the other countries have done it. Because you asked about the number. I think we are somehow, the Abraham Accord facilitated the whole thing to start from number 5. Okay. From number 5 towards number 1, from number 5 towards number 10. That in itself is good. Why? Because at the end of the day, as a political analyst who is not representing the government in any way, I think both propositions somehow have legitimate concerns. Why? Because the Israelis have serious security concerns with regards to, okay, if they have a two-state solution, what does that mean for the future, for the security of Israel, etc. So we understand that. But at the same time, you have to put some kind of moves and some steps, because you cannot actually just have this kind of stalemate and to always mention the Palestinians to not even be existing, because that's one of the officials of Benjamin Netanyahu. He has actually voiced and had like a statement saying that there's no such thing as Palestinians. Such rhetoric is not helpful.
Yeah,
it's not helpful in any process.
Any discussion.
Even though, exactly. And the Prime Minister was actually trying, and his government tried to downgrade that statement, downgrade the importance of it. And they always say this is the kind of rhetoric he, as a person, has, but it's not representative of the government. But at the same time, we see the actions to be matching that kind of statement. So that's the problem. At the end of the day, Israel is a neighbor, and we want it to be a member of the wider Middle East. But at the same time, we cannot have it while we are having a specific group, the Palestinians, to be deprived of their main right. So that's for the kingdom is considered to be, I'm not going to say a black and white, but it's considered to be the main cornerstone.
Now, as you can see there, his name is Salman. He shares the name with Mohammed bin Salman. He's a Saudi political researcher, but he's out there letting you know that before Israel is courted by the beast and does the deal with death, well, the Palestinians need to get taken care of, as the book of Joel says, that will part God's land. All right. In the book of Joel, God says that God's land will be parted, but then he specifically talks to Palestine directly about recompensing them back for what they're going to be doing pretty soon with this Palestinian two-state solution, which the Saudis themselves also say is a prerequisite to doing a deal with Israel. All right. And like I said, let's keep it nice and simple here. All right. Let's use plainness of speech. All right. Saudi Arabia is the house of Esau. Esau is going to do a deal with Jacob and not the other way around for a birthright. And that is what gets us into the final prophetic 70th week. But one thing that this man also likes to do that we just heard from, look at him recently. All right. We see him on Twitter saying the following. What a beautiful picture. The Secretary General of the Muslim World League and which is the highest Muslim authority figure, was invited to the residence of Pontifex. Don't forget who the Pontifex is, all right? The highest Catholic authority figure. By the way, Pontifex, if you forgot, is the sovereign or king of that great city of Revelation 17 that reigneth over the kings of the earth, all right? The current king of kings and king of the world is King Francis, all right? Which everybody likes to call Pope Francis. But he really is the Pontifex. Pontifex, again, means you are the sovereign, the king of the city, Vatican City, which reigns over the kings of the earth, as per Revelation 17:18. All right. Do not forget, there's a city in Revelation 17 on 7 mountains that is arrayed in purple and scarlet, like purple for the bishops, scarlet for the cardinals, and is full of names of blasphemy, like Holy Father. All right. That is the Vatican. The king of the Vatican is the Pontifex, which is the Pope. And right now there's a Jesuit Pope, and they're running the show, and they're rowing into the deep, which is the last days. All right. But look at that. Let there be peace, coexistence, tolerance. Listen, you know what you're seeing here? Like I already mentioned, this is a taste of the 2 beasts of Revelation 13. The beast from the sea is Mohammed bin Salman. This is giving you a figure of that, all right? And the beast from the earth, which is the false prophet, is the final pope, who could be the first Jesuit pope. And here he is. What you're looking at here is a taste of the 2 beasts, the beast and the false prophet of Revelation 13. And I'm telling you right now, when MBS comes together with the pope, you're looking at Revelation 13 in front of your freaking eyes. All right. That's what's going to be coming. All right. That's coming pretty soon from what it looks like. And look at what else this guy says here. Saudi Arabia may become the country that will prevent World War III. Fingers crossed. Oh, fingers crossed. Yeah. When they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction cometh upon them. All right. And they shall not escape. The whole world. Sudden destruction is coming when there's a lot of this peace and safety talk. All right. Let's see. All of a sudden, the house of Esau, the Saudi Arabian people are all of a sudden these great mediators out of nowhere. All right. Because their leader is the beast, all right? And when he does a deal with Israel, 7 years left. Don't forget that, all right? And I also wanted to bring to your attention, as we've done already, the beast is looking to be MBS, and the false prophet is looking to be the first Jesuit pope, all right? And with the practice of gematria, when you use Sumerian cipher, which is 6-digit increments, for Prince Mohammed bin Salman, you get 942, and for the Latin name of the pope, because Latin is the official language for Rome, all right? The official name for the Pope is Franciscus, which equals 942 in the reverse. So going forward, Mohammed bin Salman equals 942, and going backwards, Franciscus equals 942. But what you need to remember is 942 is 666 in duodecimal or base 12 counting. Yep, they look to be the beast and the false prophet, which will be it'll be confirmed pretty soon. All right, but either way. One of the other interesting things that I wanted to talk about in relation to the 2 beasts is this. Recently, we had a member of the House of Esau over there in Saudi Arabia tweet the following. He said, in Hebrew, by the way, all right, this is an Arab from Saudi Arabia, from the House of Esau, from Arabia, all right? He's tweeting the following in Hebrew. And he says, when you translate it from Google, all right, it says, Elijah the prophet, Elijah the prophet, Elijah the returner, Elijah the Gileadite, soon he will come to us with Messiah ben David. Let me tell you what, you know what they're going to get? What they're really going to get is the false prophet calling fire down from the sky, who they're probably going to say is coming in the spirit of Elijah. All right, because don't forget, as soon as Mohammed bin Salman does the deal with Israel, the real Moses and the real Elijah are going to come to witness to the nation of Israel to purge out the believing 144,000 male virgin Jews for the time of Jacob's trouble. All right. They're called the 2 witnesses in Revelation 11 because they're going to witness to Israel and they're going to believe 144,000 of them, male virgin Jews, they're going to believe, and they're going to be sealed by an angel by the middle of the tribulation for the time of Jacob's trouble. The real Moses, the real Elijah, they're coming. But you know who kills them? The beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. That's how I know when Judas ascends. Because Judas ascends in the middle after the 2 witnesses are done witnessing, and he's going to kill the 2 witnesses in the body of MBS. All right? That's what's coming up. All right? But let's also read from Revelation 13. Because here is Mohammed Saud from Saudi Arabia saying, Elijah's coming to bring us Messiah ben David. No, you know what you're going to get? The false prophet calling fire down from the sky, just like Elijah did. You remember how Elisha called fire down from the sky with the priests of Baal? Well, we're going to get the false prophet doing a counterfeit. All right, so they could say that is Elijah. He's in the spirit of Elijah. And look at this, because the false prophet, do not forget, the false prophet is going to tell everybody to worship the beast that had the wound by a sword and did live. That's what his purpose is as well. All right. He's an economic person that pushes the mark of the beast, but he's also a religious person who tells everybody to worship the guy that just got killed by a sword and yet lives. But I read to you from Revelation 13 that says the following. And he, that's the false prophet, that is also the final pope. And he doeth great wonders, so that he, the false prophet, maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. All right. Oh, in the spirit of Elijah. Oh, yeah, because he's going to be saying, worship this guy who just got killed by a sword and yet lives, as I bring fire down from the sky like Elijah did with the priests of Baal. And you can see Muhammad Saud from the house of Esau, he's preparing that. He's preparing this idea of Elijah coming to give us the Messiah. Yeah, he's going to give us the beast. He's going to give us the son of perdition. That's what's coming. All right. But notice, we just covered how a Saudi is talking about Israeli normalization. But now let's go back to Israel with TV7 News from Israel in Jerusalem, also talking about the deal with death coming up when Saudi normalizes with Israel to get us into the last days. Let's take a look.
TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Jerusalem officials believe that in the next several months, Israel will normalize its relations with a number of undisclosed countries. Israeli National Security Advisor Tzachi Hanegbi does not believe that Iran and the United States would reach a nuclear agreement, despite reports insinuating otherwise. CENTCOM Commander General Michael Kurilla visits Israel amid a wide-scale IDF exercise, which focuses on a military campaign in multiple arenas simultaneously. Israel is actively engaged in so-called Track 2 diplomacy aimed at normalizing relations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, among other undisclosed regional and global countries. Circulating reports emerged of two separate phone calls between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Foreign Minister Eli Cohen with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman earlier this week, as part of which concrete deliberations via Bahraini mediation ensued about potentially facilitating direct flights between the Jewish state and the Arabian Kingdom to accommodate transit of thousands of Israeli Muslims intending to travel for the annual Hajj pilgrimage to the city of Mecca. And while limited details were leaked from the separate conversations, the messaging between Jerusalem and Riyadh stoked renewed chatter, highlighting prospects of imminent breakthrough, both in Israel and abroad, including a joint conference by the Institute for National Security Studies and the Moshe Dayan Center for Middle Eastern and African Studies, titled Saudi Arabia Between Iran and Israel. Addressing the conference, former Mossad Director and National Security Advisor Yossi Cohen initially highlighted a question related to whether renewed normalization between Saudi Arabia and Iran would indeed impair Jerusalem's aspired rapprochement with Riyadh.
Does a bilateral Iranian-Saudi arrangement have necessarily implications for the state of Israel? I say, and I hope this to be true, that it doesn't. I think that what Israel needs to do in this relation is to try and enter into the Saudi shoes and comprehend that this matter does not necessarily intend to tell us that we have distanced ourselves. Rather, they tells us to understand their perspective, whether or not they have ties with Iran. Also France and Britain and relations and embassies in Iran. What does that mean? Is it against Israel? The Netherlands has an embassy in Tehran. Does it point to its relations with the state of Israel with the Saudis? Of course not. There are matters that happen on a bilateral level that do not necessarily impact the state of Israel at this stage.
The The recently retired Mossad director went on to insist that a peace accord between Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was both necessary and possible.
Normalizacja, shalom, peace treaty.
A normalization or peace treaty with Saudi is possible.
אומר בזהירות,
I say, carefully, since I don't base this on intelligence of recent weeks, that these contacts, if they are managed intensively under correct and right brokerage, with good and correct assurances from the United States, with certain statements also regarding the Palestinian arena, but I don't think that it should be attached to concrete commitments of types of steps, because this would require policy to debate on from all sides. And to my assessment, this peace accord with the Saudis is both
בכל הצדדים,
necessary and possible.
הוא גם נדרש והוא גם אפשרי.
All right, and as you can see there, again, Israeli news keeps hammering the idea that we need to do this deal with Saudi Arabia. And little do they know, they do that deal, 7 years left. That is what starts the last days. Do not forget, the beast doing the deal with Israel. And it's truly Esau doing the deal with Jacob pretty soon. And we do highlight that to a certain extent here with our 2022 film that we have for free called The Prince of the Covenant, showing you that the Prince of the Covenant is Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And when he confirms the covenant with Israel, we enter the last days. All right, don't forget the very simple, there is simplicity in Christ. This is the very simple equation that we got coming up. MBS plus Israel deal equals the last days. That's what starts it. All right, we are being prepared right now for the last days. Ever since 2020 with Operation Warp Speed, there was a serpent baptism to prepare the way for the Son of Perdition, not the Son of Man. All right, we're not being prepared for the Son of Man. We're being prepared for the Son of Perdition with that old serpent's pink venom that just baptized 70% of the world for the final prophetic 70th week coming up. And you can see our film for free called The Prince of the Covenant with, by the way, we're almost at 47,000 views, and not one person has been able to say anything against this film because it is the truth, all right? Beingjustified.com/PC will take you to that film so you can watch it today.